Welcome, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. All right, some familiar names popping in. Thank you all so much for being here with us. Today is a special 50 Strong event. We have Frank Ugenti here with us, who is running point on the Clario military Skillbridge program for residential real estate appraiser certification plus follow-up employment. So we're super happy to have Frank here with us. Also here with us is Kristen Scott, who works closely with me to support Clario's program as they're getting up and running. So Kristen and Frank, thank you both so much for being here. Kristen, do you mind to just say a quick hello, and then we'll turn it over to Frank to introduce himself as well?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Kristen Scott. I myself retired from the Navy a few years ago and have since been here supporting the Skillbridge space with Candy for the last few years.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate you being back on. Frank, how are you?
Good, Candy. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Used to. So it's been a busy year.
So it has been a busy year. Listen, some of you know, Frank is a longtime friend of my husband's and mine. And we started this SkillBridge conversation with you, Frank, about almost a year and a half ago. And it's been awesome to see Clario kind of leaning in. Frank, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and Clario. And we're super excited to just kind of start jumping in.
All right. Well, I don't like talking about myself, but so real quick, I'm an appraiser, a real estate appraiser. Have been doing this for about 20 years, located in Arizona. I've worked independently. I've worked as a trainee, as a supervisor. I've worked for banks. I've worked for appraisal management companies, and I've been on the state appraisal board as a regulator as well. So I've kind of, in the 20 years, been able to touch on all aspects of the industry, and I'm still learning, which is cool about the profession. That said, yeah, Candy, it's been probably a year and a half because we're coming up on our 1 year of SkillBridge DoD approval, where Clario has had a program in effect. And in that year, now we've just brought on our 4th service member in our pilot program. And, the positive results of the individuals that are paving the way for the ones that come behind them. The service members we have on board are fantastic, and we're just going to scale it in 2022, which is what I think we'll talk about coming up here.
And I think this is so let's kind of go back for a second,
Sure.
But I do just want to touch on something that you talked about. It is so important for service members to understand that, you are a year into being listed as an official provider on the DoD SkillBridge website. And I would say that we're just now starting to scratch the surface, and kind of the first year was a pilot. And I think this is a really important point for service members to know. Frank, you didn't have all the answers for your SkillBridge program.
No, learn as you go. There was no model for this operation. It was.
And I think this is such an important point as you're kind of voyaging into SkillBridge. But Frank, can we back up? So, did you serve in the military, Frank?
I did not. No, I did not. I get asked that a lot. I think in this world of SkillBridge, I think I'm the oddball out. I'm the only one that didn't serve. It seems to be that way. So no.
Yes, but you had a very close friend that served, and so yes. So Frank had a front row seat to my husband Kevin's transition out of the military.
Yeah, so Kevin and I are lifelong friends since childhood, really. And Candy was there during his transition to civilian life, and I was, along with the other friends and family. And Kevin's talked about it openly, as have others. It's hard to transition to civilian life. You're really accomplished at what you do in service to the country. But sometimes that doesn't always make it an easy transition. So in seeing Kevin, who's, a smart, talented, has connections, has college degrees, has a footprint in the community, to come back and struggle to find good employment, that just didn't make sense. So that's kind of where our hearts started. And now we're applying our resources to making sure that we can help others.
That's great. Okay, Frank, tell us, will you just step back a little bit and tell us a little bit about Clario and the real estate appraiser industry kind of in general?
Sure. So Clario Appraisal is a national appraisal firm. We are managed by all appraisers. There's no nobody in the company that's not an appraiser themselves. So everybody here has been there, done that, boots on the ground, if you will, and pulled a tape measure around the house and sweated on the side of a hill trying to get a house inspected. So that's important to note because you're going to be managed by folks that have done what we're asking you to do. Appraising, for those of you that don't know, is anytime, this is what we do it mainly for the lending community. So anytime somebody does a refinance or a purchase on their home and needs to get a loan from a bank, the bank calls a company like ours and resources us to get an independent appraiser to determine what the home was worth. And then that way the buyer and the seller can make a intelligent, informed decision, and the bank can make an informed decision on making sure they're lending the right amount of money based on the appraiser's opinion. What I love about appraising is, and I've said this on other calls and some of our job fairs we've done, but it's so on point. If I sat in a cubicle 8 hours a day, I'd lose it. I want to be a pleasant person to be around. That's just not how I want to go about my day. It works for some people.
We all want you to be a pleasant person to be around, Frank.
Yes, thank you. So, but that said, if I was working on a road crew in the Arizona heat for 8 hours a day in construction or in any industry where I was outdoors, man, you know, that would wear on me as well. So I say that to say this: what's great about appraising is you spend part of your day at your home office, at your computer, analyzing the market, researching the sales in the neighborhood. And then the other part of your day, you're out in the community, you're inspecting homes, meeting the homeowner, meeting realtors. Sometimes you go to a new construction and meet the builders, and that I find really fulfilling because you get to break up your day and make up your own schedule, be out in the community, and also, you know, get back home and use an analytical part of your mind and really apply the logic to, now that I have all the information, what is this house really worth? And we teach you how to do all that.
You know, it's interesting. I hear a lot of service members that are just interested in real estate in general, right? Mm-hmm. And within real estate, there's lots of jobs, right? There's a real estate agent, there's real estate appraiser, there's broker, there's all these things, right? And Kristen, weren't you interested in real estate for a while?
It's funny, before I joined the Navy, I worked at a mortgage company at an in-house real estate place. So I got to see kind of like how all the aspects of buying a house come together. And I just really enjoyed, being in the real estate, industry, kind of definitely working with appraisers and all kinds of other people. But the best part was like just being able to get out, right, in the real world. And it's always something new every day, So it was, I guess if I hadn't joined the Navy, maybe I would have gone down that path, but.
That's great. All right. So Frank, before we start to talk about the SkillBridge program, do you want to talk at all about like the workforce opportunities in general in real estate appraising?
Sure. Yeah. And, you mentioned some of the other professions that are adjacent to or kind of near the industry of appraising, and it's the real estate market in general. So realtors are great, right? There's a lot of them. So folks that are service members and want to be a realtor, it's perhaps an easier path as far as how much time commitment and licensing, but there's a lot of competition out there, and it truly is the type of profession where you need to have a network and build a book of business. Great profession. If that's what you're interested in, go for it. We all also often get confused a little bit with what home inspectors do, which is it may be important to note. So we inspect the house too, but we inspect a home for different reasons. We inspect it just to take note of what the quality of improvements are and what those are worth. So we look at it to determine what it's worth. A home inspector inspects a home to determine if there's anything wrong with the home, and then they bring that to the homeowner's attention. Two different questions being answered. Both are great professions. What's nice about the job market and appraising for those of you looking to come into the workforce now is there is a shortage of appraisers. We are a dying profession, unfortunately. I'm 43 years old. I've been doing it 20 years. I started out the youngest guy in the room taking my education. Anytime I go back for my continuing education classes, I'm still the youngest guy in the room. The average age of an appraiser in the US is 59 years old. You just do the math on that. 5 years from now, there's going to be an issue, right? 10 years from now, there'll be a real issue. So there's this definite need for new blood into the industry. There's a tremendous opportunity for those that are getting into the industry. Pay is much higher than it's ever been. Technology is so superior to what it's been in the past. So it's really a neat time for the industry, and there's a lot of opportunities.
Frank, Victor has asked a couple of questions. What's the hardest part of the job? And are there some parts of the job that you don't like about the industry?
Yeah. So hardest part of the job. Well, I guess you'd have to kind of have to be an appraiser every appraiser that might watch this replay will kind of smile and chuckle at this. It's dealing with the realtors. Okay. So I was married to a realtor. So Candy will smile at this, a wonderful lady, mother of my children. But we used to, Thanksgiving was interesting. It was, Frank, I don't care what it's worth. What can I sell it for? So that's the difference between a realtor and an appraiser. They care about what can I sell the darn thing for? Whereas an appraiser is, well, they shouldn't pay more than it's worth. Everybody should pay what the thing is worth. So we care about what it's worth. And then you make the decision on whether you want to buy it at that price or not. So Victor, to answer the question, realtors can be challenging. They've gotten better over years. They used to kind of be abrasive and know-it-alls and I'm going to get you fired type of people. You'll never appraise here again. But fortunately, the industry has put a lot of laws and regulations in place to where you can't, and it's illegal in most states to intimidate an appraiser based on what they say a home is worth. So, appraisals will kind of smile at that because they'll just laugh when they hear about a realtor complaining. But that's probably the hardest part.
So that's funny, Frank, because that's definitely my experience on the real estate side, right? Like with loan agents and real estate agents who have a very vested interest in making sure that valuation comes in the right way. But when I hear you say that now, like from a military perspective, what it says to me is that our professionalism and the skills that we bring in communication can really maybe that's something that we're bringing to the table in the appraiser field.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned it, the vested interest. So, and that's an important phrase. So the appraiser in the entire loan transaction, you have a buyer, you have a seller, you have a realtor, you have a title agent, you have a banker that's doing the loan. All of those individuals have a financial change in their life, depending on if that loan goes through or not. The appraiser is the only one that's completely objective and nothing changes in the appraiser's life based on whether or not that loan transaction goes through, that sale goes through, that refinance goes through. We're truly objective. I mean, we want you to be able to get the home of your dreams. We want you to be able to get the refinance so you can, do what you want with the money but we have to look at it objectively. That's our job. And every industry has a how-to book, a best practices or a regulation. Ours is a book of ethics. That's our regulations. It's not a how-to book. It's an ethics book, which is what appraisers use. So it's a little telling about the industry, which is appealing to me.
That's really, it's really insightful, Frank. Frank, we are actually getting some pretty great questions coming in about the SkillBridge program specifically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull up my screen.
Okay, shoot.
And let's talk about the SkillBridge program that Clario has as a next step. And then again, listen, y'all, great questions coming in the chat. So please go ahead and keep plugging those in as you have them. So Frank, this year in 2021, you had in-person training.
Correct.
And next year for 2022, super exciting that there will be more locations for in-person training plus a virtual training program. So can we start by talking about the in-person locations that are planned for next year and maybe some of the learnings that you've had from the participants? The fourth one just started this week, right? But maybe some of the learnings that you've had for the in-person piece, and we'll just kind of, we can kind of casually go through this information
Sure.
as the questions are coming in.
Yeah. So quickly on the in-person, which we call the traditional path. And we call it that because it's what's traditionally been done in the industry for 50 years. You know someone who's an appraiser who's willing to train you in a mentor-apprentice relationship, an artisan craftsman type of situation where you literally shadow them around on their assignments all day long, and you learn by observing and then by doing what they say and how they show you things. So that traditional path in-person training, we have successfully trained or in the process of training 4 people in the Thousand Oaks and Sacramento, Roseville areas. So Northern California and Southern California, respectively. We are very excited to say that we are bringing on 2 great supervisors, one in the Philly area, which appraisers in that region of the country actually service all 3 states. So Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. So you'll get licensed in 3 states out there to service that one big geographic market that covers the tri-state area. Here in our own backyard, we are going to do a great supervisor I worked with at a previous company. Really excited he's joining us, and he'll start in the Phoenix market in January, and he'll be ready to start hosting our first guest in February. We've found that it takes about 7 to 8 months to train somebody in the traditional path, in all reality, for a variety of reasons. Now, the traditional path to becoming an appraiser is a 6-month minimum training, but in practical applications, it does take closer to 7 to 8 months for a variety of different reasons. It could be leave that the service member needs to take for personal appointments. It could be the continuing education or the qualifying education, that they have to take as a prerequisite to getting trained. It could be just the nature of how quickly they learn underneath their supervisor. So that's the traditional path in person. We're also really excited that we're the first in the industry to develop a program for virtual training. So I mentioned that there's a shortage of appraisers. One of the reasons there's a shortage of appraisers is because there is a shortage of supervisors, existing appraisers willing to train somebody else. It's expensive to train somebody else. So independent appraisers, while they may have the heart of a teacher and want to, they just financially can't afford to slow down their business to start training somebody that they know. Certainly it's hard to ask them to train a stranger. So the industry's recognized this has been a problem for a long time, and our congressional regulators gave us permission a couple of years ago to develop a virtual training program. I mentioned it was a couple of years ago. It just takes that long to develop the program and get it approved state by state. We anticipate our virtual program will be ready second half of the year. So we might, optimistically, June, we might be able to have our first group of folks. And we anticipate as many as 25 people in the virtual program in 2022 as part of the pilot. And we would consider that a small batch pilot group. If it goes well and, we learn as we go and fix the kinks, then we'll scale that in 2023. Maybe it could be 5 to 10 times as many people. So lots of opportunities in the coming year.
And Frank, I think this is such an important point because, a lot of times, and I'll share a little bit of insight from where I kind of sit in this world. I know that a lot of times service members want to lock in their SkillBridge participation as early as they possibly can. Everybody, please hear me. I do not want anybody to lock into a SkillBridge program or any kind of participation that requires command paperwork approval before we absolutely know that the training is ready. And so a lot of times, people are like, oh, well, if it started in June, can I go ahead and submit everything now and get approved and I have it ready in January? What we really are trying to be so mindful of is, listen, I've been a part of a lot of technology rollouts, as I'm sure many of you have. If this turns into July or August versus June, we just want to be super mindful of all of your participation. So I hope this makes sense. As you're reaching out with questions, we are going to share as much as we can, but just realize that this is a first in its industry type of training and their technology is what it is. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we are working as diligently as we can, but we don't want to lock anybody in too early.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And, we're optimistic. If the timeline moves, it moves. But right now, this is what we're planning. So in full transparency, we just want to share what the possibilities are.
That's great. Yeah.
Everything's subject to change, as always is true.
That's great. So Frank, I'm just going to go through a couple of these slides. I think you've already talked to these, but again, for the in-person training, those are on an earlier timeline, right? And we're gonna match up service member SkillBridge eligibility with the timing available of the supervisor, of the trainers. So I just wanted to show a little bit more on that. So for these, for example, Darius, thank you for the question. Sorry, let me go back. For these, if your SkillBridge timing, let's say we're looking at Philly, and that's where you're trying to go, right? Or that's where you are today, perhaps. Maybe you're at Dover. Kirsten, isn't Dover near Philly? It's in Delaware, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dover's in Delaware, very near Philly. And
Yeah,
also
so let's say you're at Dover, right? And there is a trainer that's expected to have availability in February. We can go ahead and submit your application to Frank now to start interviewing for that one, because we know that there's going to be a trainer in that location, right? When we get to the virtual opportunities, those, frankly, that's really the one where we want to be mindful of, right? So we think it's going to be ready June or July. Kristen and I, applications are open for that, but if your SkillBridge starts in like March and you have availability March through October, for example, I just don't want you waiting around hoping beyond hope and banking and putting all your eggs in one basket, right? So those are going to be closer to like February, March. We have info from Frank that we're going to start interviewing for those. Darius, I hope that helped. Let me know if there's a follow-up. Frank, we talked about this one. Can we talk a little bit, Frank, about the goal of your SkillBridge program, right, is to bring people in and get them trained and then translate those to full-time employment.
Yeah.
But can we talk a little bit about locations, relocation, that type of thing for the employment?
Yeah. And, something else popped in my head when I was reading a question on the pop-up screen. So I want to touch on that, but, and then I'll get to the relocation conversation. I mentioned that it's showing us that it's taking 7 or 8 months to actually get trained to be an appraiser. And I've had folks ask, well, my SkillBridge is 6 months. What if, and that's the best case scenario, you take the full 6 months. Some folks will bring in that have 3 months left because we like the candidate and we want them to be part of our family and part of our company in the future. So if you're a part of our program, once your SkillBridge eligibility runs out and then you are transitioned to civilian life, we will immediately give you employment as a trainee to finish your training and become an appraiser. So we will stay with you through the entire path. Once SkillBridge is done, you are brought in as a trainee, finish out your training. And then once your training's done and you get your appraisal license, we'll offer you employment as a full-time appraiser. So each one of those steps is a raise in income. Each one of those steps is a milestone in your career to long-term employment. Once you are licensed as an appraiser, after the trainee program is done, it's most likely that you'll be asked to relocate somewhere else. Now, we don't demand you must go here or there. We work with you on that. So part of the interview process with 50 Strong, vetting you, and if they find a candidate that they like and they send you over to me and I'll interview you, we'll have extensive conversations about what are some markets that you don't mind living in, once this training is all said and done. And we need to put in a market that works for us and for you. And if it's a fit, then yeah, to Candy's point, we'll give you long-term employment as a real estate appraiser as part of our company.
That's great. So basically, we're trying to match up everybody's timing plus the trainer or virtual training availability plus the business need for full-time employment on the back end. Because what we're all trying to work toward is not just you going to get training. What we're trying to work toward is employment outcomes, right? And so we have to align that with the business need and locations.
Yeah. Another question that I get a lot, Candy, is, well, how much do appraisers make?
Yeah, that's a great
Right?
one.
I mean, what are we doing here, right? We're here to make
Yeah,
money.
let's talk
So
about it.
the owner of our company, and Clario is a privately held company. We're not a public company. It still is very much a mom and pop field, everything. Everybody knows everybody. You're not an employee ID number, you know, that you might get in a big corporate operation. And I say that just to kind of lay the groundwork for what the culture is. The owner of our company has asked us to figure out a way financially to make sure all of our full-time seasoned appraisers, being, you know, that you've been an appraiser more than 2 years with the company, will make at least $100,000 a year, regardless of the market that they're located in. And we've been able to meet that commitment. The reason I say seasoned, 2 years established appraisers is because when you're in your first couple of years, you're just not as productive, right? You're learning it. You're getting used to the profession. You're getting used to doing appraisals. And when you're getting used to doing things, you don't want to play fast and loose. So we bring you along to where you make very nice money. And it's a fit for you and your family. But to answer the specific question is how much money can an appraiser make at Clario? The answer is a range. It depends on the market you live in. Some markets pay more, some pay less, and depends how much work you do. The more you work, the more you make. The less you work, the less you make. That said, $100,000 is what our goal is as a company that a full-time appraiser will make. We have some folks that make $250,000 that work in markets that are higher costs of living, so we pay more there. And they are top producers, of course. So that's why they're able to make more money, because they produce a lot for us. So it's a good opportunity for long-term, very good, stable compensation for you and your family.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for the transparency on that, Frank.
Sure.
Okay, Frank, we had a question about education requirements for this program. So can we talk a little bit, and I'll just turn it over to you, but can we talk a little bit about that? And I think it's important to know, maybe before we talk about education, listen, this program is open to all ranks of transitioning service members, but there are some education requirements to that. So Frank, I'll let you talk to this.
Great. It may be worthwhile to let everybody know they can go to you can Google this. It's Appraisal Qualifications Board, and that is our federal regulator. So Appraisal Qualifications Board will list in detail all the requirements to become an appraiser. There's two types of residential appraisers. There's residential licensed appraiser, and there's a certified residential appraiser. There's something else called a certified general appraiser, but they do commercial properties. So that's not what our company does. So licensed appraisers, this is where we're saying it's 6-month minimum requirement to get licensed in most states. A licensed appraiser can appraise any home that is under $1 million in value, and that is 4 units or less. So like a fourplex or smaller. Anything that's bigger than 4 units is considered a commercial property. Okay. A certified residential appraiser can appraise any value home that's 4 units or less, but they can't do commercial properties. We want to get our folks to get to certified residential. You're with your supervisor for those first 6 to 8 months to get licensed. And then once you're licensed, you'll no longer be with your supervisor. You'll be an appraiser on your own, and then you'll get certified on your own, and we'll help you do that. But you won't be working with your supervisor to do that. The education requirements for licensed is a high school diploma. All right, that's the lower tier. The education requirement for certified, which we want all of our appraisers to be, is, as you see here, a bachelor degree in any field will satisfy. An associate's degree with specific courses, as mentioned here, will satisfy. And then the 30 hours of college level courses with specific curriculum that is completed in those 30 hours will qualify. So some of those subjects for classes are listed here on this screen. The Appraisal Qualifications Board is, I'll just defer to them. I don't have it memorized, but you guys can research it on your own there. There are other programs they allow. There's a college level equivalency program, CLEP, which is basically like going to night school just to get a college degree, and you do it in a much quicker, condensed fashion. I don't know anybody that's done that program, so I can't comment on whether it's an easy path or not, but that is something that the Appraisal Qualifications Board allows. So it'd be great if you have a college degree. If you don't, it's not a deal breaker. If you're a good candidate, you're a good candidate. We want you to be a part of our company. But if you have a college degree, that's the best qualification for us.
Frank, I love that you clarified about the CLEP, because in the military, we are very familiar with the CLEP process.
Okay.
And so that's good to know that for some of those, maybe the 30 semester hours, some of those could be CLEPed. That's a great resource because CLEPs are free for the military.
Yep.
And also wanted to point out that a lot of people in the Air Force or who have gone through Air Force equivalent training in a different service may have those college credits already awarded through CCAF. So those are all good things for military, ways that military people specifically might meet those education requirements.
You need to add both of those to this slide, Kristen. That's such a great call out.
Thank you, Kristen. I was unaware of any of those, so thank you for educating me. The only other thing I would say as far as education requirements is you will see on the Appraisal Qualifications Board website a list of qualifying education classes you have to take. Those are appraisal classes that need to be taken at some point during your training. Don't worry about those classes. Don't go out and subscribe to those and pay for those and take those on your own. If you're selected for our program, we pay for those classes, and that's part of our 6 to 8 month training program, is that you take the 150 hours to be licensed through us. So don't confuse that with college classes that are needed. Those classes are appraisal classes needed for the professional license.
So Frank, what I'm hearing you say is for transitioning service members, and based on what Kristen just said too, like I'd encourage folks, if you are interested in residential real estate appraising, go ahead and apply. And what we're going to do is we're going to put forth all candidates that look strong, that are relatively close to the education requirements. So again, if you have interest, please go ahead and make sure that you're applying. Frank, we got a quick question from Michael. For the virtual training, will you need to be in the general location of where you are expecting to get hired on?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No. So if it's virtual, you could do it from anywhere, as it sounds. There's no face-to-face with the supervisor. So I should clarify the traditional path, in-person training with your supervisor. That's one option. The second option is virtual. Virtual is in lieu of being with a supervisor. So there will be no supervisor that you meet with daily. This will be an online learning platform through your computer where you can become a qualified licensed appraiser by taking classes virtually. Now, that said, we all understand the practical application here. If you are a pilot and you've done nothing but simulators and you've never been in the air with your instructor, I'm not flying with you. So we're not going to let you appraise somebody's house just because you got a virtual training license. Once you do go through the virtual training program, the state does give you a license. But if you're one of Clario's employees as an appraiser, we're going to take you in the field with a seasoned appraiser in your market, and we're going to train you to become an appraiser with real life experience, 20 or 30 assignments, spend a month or two with somebody, seeing how they do it, just to make sure you have a comfort level. And also we make sure that we're protecting the public, that you don't go out there and make a mistake.
That's great.
Mhm.
Other questions? We have a couple more minutes for questions. We'll keep an eye. Kristen, are there other things you think we should talk about?
I do want to make sure we got through all the questions. We did have a question about, so we were talking about SkillBridge timing. And one of the questions was, if the SkillBridge timing doesn't line up, either for virtual or maybe an in-person location doesn't line up, is Clario hiring veterans outside of the SkillBridge program to participate in the training program?
Yeah. So part of our initiative is that we do want to do that. So it's in our planning phase. Right now, today, are we bringing anybody on board that's a veteran that's no longer SkillBridge eligible? We are not as of today because we don't have the capacity. Once the virtual training program is established and is a proven concept, so maybe late in 2022 or sometime in 2023, it's one of the agendas I'm personally pushing, which is, hey, we have 50 or we have 100, we have 150 people that were interested in joining our company, but they missed their window. What can we do for them? So what I'm pitching to the bosses is that they would be able to participate in our virtual training for free. Normally we charge for that class to the general public. And as far as offering them employment, that's just, we'll just cross that bridge when it comes. If there's a need and they go through our training program on their own, and it's in a market where we need them and they interview great, then yeah, we would consider them for employment. Can't make any guarantees though. For those of you that aren't aware, there's just a big interest. I mean, we have over 200 people that have applied to be a trainee, and we don't have 200 positions available. So it depends, but we do want to try to do right by everybody and offer the training to them in the future.
And I think this is such an important discussion. You know, there is an industry reality to veteran employment, SkillBridge, all of it. And I think, you know, Clario is a great example. You know, Clario doesn't have a military recruiter, right? And SkillBridge is their first kind of dip the toe in the water for military initiatives. And so I think this is just an important reality on the industry side, is we can't do everything right away because we have to constantly prove it out internally to business owners, right? This is just a reality. And so I think it's such a great point that you bring up, Frank, and we're excited to help support, you know, moving beyond SkillBridge, but we certainly want to make sure that the SkillBridge piece is running smoothly. Does the company cover mileage that you travel, Frank, is a question that just came in.
Yes.
Okay.
And we give it a cell phone allowance. I think it's $75 a month.
Okay. Eric asked a question. Frank, can you talk a little bit about the normal training day for the SkillBridge program? And since you've now had a few people go through that,
Yes.
Maybe lessons learned, right? Based on what you're seeing.
Yeah. So the normal training day. So you train when your supervisor is available and needs it. Now, that said, we tell our supervisor to have a structured 8-hour day for a couple of reasons. One, SkillBridge and the DoD does not let the SkillBridge intern, which you'd be considered an intern through our program, you're not allowed to work overtime, right? So, and that makes sense. We don't want to use you folks, overuse you unfairly and work you more than a 40-hour week. So you will, in almost every circumstance, you'll be in a situation where you're working an 8-hour day, give or take within normal business hours. Some supervisors might be early risers, 6 a.m. Some might, not start their day and just do it until later and be a 9 to 5 banking hours type of person. What's nice about appraising, and I think I touched on this a little bit, but you make your own schedule. So we don't micromanage you down to that point. Part of what the supervisor will teach you to do is teach you how to run a day-to-day appraisal operation as your own little business, your own home office, and to make sure you are being efficient with your time and scheduling your appointments to where it works for the homeowner and works for your schedule. But I have a lot of folks that are single parents. I'm a single parent myself. And they need to do the drop off at school or the pickup at school, or the run to the sports. Maybe some folks want to, hit the gym or run appointments. All of that is just what's great added value about the profession. You make your own schedule. It's your own routine. And that's why I kind of dance around. Is it a specific structure? No, it's not. But for trainees, we do have you structured because we need to get you to your 1,000 hours of qualified time so you can get your license. We tell our guys to do give or take banking hours and just get an 8-hour day in. Some of it will be virtual, like we're doing right now via Zoom call. Like your supervisor may be like, we don't need to meet face-to-face today. I want you working on these tasks, and then let's video chat later and we can go over those tasks later. Other times you'll be with them for the 8 hours in the field together looking at houses.
And for those of you that may be thinking about, VA appointments and that kind of thing before you separate, I'll share with you that Frank and Clario have been as flexible as possible. They, Frank, I'll never forget the day that you called and asked me to explain what this process was like. And so the Clario team understands how important this is to service members. So I just wanted to kind of call that out as well. Okay, John has asked, at what point during the training do you project to make a full-time offer?
Everybody we bring in is with the intent that they will be an employee of ours. As they'll get through the training program, they'll become an appraiser, and they'll be offered employment as a staff appraiser. And we want to keep you as long as you want to stay. So that's the goal, right? There are some regulations that we need to follow as far as making offers with respect to SkillBridge program, the do's and don'ts of SkillBridge. So what we're doing on our end, and Candy, you tell us if this is appropriate, at 30 days out from your discharge to civilian life, we start that paperwork, and that you won't be done with your training. Even if you've been in our program for 6 months, you won't be done with your training. Like I said, it's turning out that it's taking 7 or 8 months, but you'll be offered an employment position as a trainee to finish out your training. Once you finish out your training, you'll be given an offer as a staff appraiser. So we do it about 30 days out.
And this is also why it's really important. When folks interview with the Clario team for SkillBridge participation, they're basically interviewing for this thinking ahead to long-term employment. So I want everybody to keep that in mind if you get moved forward to the interview. John, I hope that helps to answer the question. Vidar asked a question, are the previously stated locations coming in January and February the only available locations? For the in-person training, those are the locations where we have supervisors at Clario for the in-person training.
Yeah, I will add that we're aggressively recruiting supervisors in Texas. So, and maybe it's important to some, but you might look at one of the previous slides and it showed there's 1 or 2 positions available in upcoming. The regulators will only allow for a supervisor to have 3 trainees at a time. So we can't add more until they're done training the ones that are already there. With that said, Texas allows 5 at a time because they're Texas, and they say if everybody else in the nation says 3, we're going to say 5. So they allow their supervisors to do 5 trainees at a time. We're having a hard time finding folks in Texas to be supervisors, but we're aggressively recruiting some people. I'm optimistic we'll have 1 or 2 supervisors come to the company in 2022, and we could start doing in-person training somewhere in Texas in 2022. We're looking at the big markets. We're looking at Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. Those make sense from a business standpoint to train in those markets. So more to come.
All right. I hope this has been helpful. I wanted to just make sure that we're covering off on next steps. So we talked about a lot in the last 45 minutes. This full replay is going to be available at the same link where you can go and apply. So it's www.50-strong.us/Clario. So we're going to have all the information that we just talked about there and apply directly there. I want to also, this is actually a really good opportunity to clarify. So Clario is a DoD authorized SkillBridge provider. Okay, they are listed on the SkillBridge website. This is their program. We as 50 Strong are simply helping them with a little bit of outreach getting their program going. We also are handling the intake for all of the SkillBridge interest. Kristen is going to be working really hard behind the scenes to make sure that we're matching up timing and locations plus timing for virtual. So when you apply, you're actually applying, it comes to me and Kristen first, and then you'll hear from Kristen first to, confirm whatever. And then we share each of the applicants with Frank's team. So I want to just make that a little bit clear. You are not applying to the 50 strong SkillBridge program. You would be applying to the Clario program, but 50 strong is supporting their efforts. All right. For those of you that are here with us and you're like, oh, shoot, I almost cursed and caught myself. Oh, shoot, my timing or my locations or their locations for post-military employment don't line up. Listen, one of the really strong things that we believe at 50 Strong is that we want folks to find their best fit for SkillBridge and beyond. And one of the things that means is we all have an expectation that SkillBridge providers are working together and collaborating. So there are now 1,500 plus SkillBridge authorized providers listed on the DoD SkillBridge website. Please leverage that. We also work with 70 of those providers via 50 Strong today, and we've just added 2 more in the last 12 hours. So my point is, please leverage all the resources that are available for SkillBridge and don't feel that you don't have options, okay? There are tons of replays on our website featuring lots of employers. Please leverage those. And then in January, we will start back with our live events. And so you're getting first glance. This has not even gone anywhere yet, but this is a tentative view of what our spring event calendar is going to look like. So we have a big SkillBridge networking event coming up January 12th that I hope you can join us for. Okay, I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Frank. We're really thrilled to be supporting Clario's program. It's super innovative, a great example of a smaller organization really participating in SkillBridge in a way that is aligned to workforce outcomes. So super jazzed about that. Let me take a look in the chat. Kristen, do we have any other questions that I've missed? All right. Any last questions?
Hit all of them.
All right. Any last burning questions anybody wants to throw in there? All right. Ooh, yes.
Can you apply to the virtual program via the SkillBridge website? So the application for the virtual program is on the 50 Strong Clario page. So that's what Candy was talking about, where you apply through 50 Strong since we're supporting the Clario program. So Candy just dropped that link right there in the chat. So that is the place to apply for SkillBridge with Clario.
Can I also just say, for everybody to know, you don't apply to any SkillBridge program via the DoD SkillBridge website. So this is just an important clarification if anybody is confused on that.
Yeah.
What the SkillBridge website is giving you is a URL or an email that then you can go and work through. So please don't think that when you do anything on the SkillBridge website that you're applying to a program. Each program has their own intake set up. Sorry, a little bit of a soapbox, but I've seen too many people get confused on that.
No, it's good. I like it because the next thing I was going to say is I know that it can be a point of frustration. The bottom line is we understand that everyone only has one opportunity for SkillBridge. And it may seem like with the location requirements, the location, not only the location requirement for training, but the relocation requirement afterwards, and then also the timing requirement, those may seem like frustrating constraints on our SkillBridge program for Clario to service members. But the bottom line is we know that you only have one chance for SkillBridge. And if there's a possibility that this isn't going to be in your best interest because of one of those factors, we don't want you to waste your SkillBridge opportunity on something that is not going to result in a positive outcome for you. So I'm saying this because I we do see the questions and we do see the applications, and people are sometimes disappointed because the variables just don't line up for their specific situation. And we want to be as transparent as possible. And please understand that we always have your best interest as the service member at the forefront at all times.
Yep. That's such a, we're working so hard to make sure that there is employment on the back end, right? We don't want to waste anybody's time. So Kristen's such a great point. All right. Frank, any last words of wisdom?
No, just thank you for your support, and to all the veterans and the service members on. If you do reach out to me on LinkedIn, be patient with me. Anytime we do a video like this or any type of meeting, I get, my inbox gets bombarded. I don't live on LinkedIn, so I check it every once in a while. So be patient with me. I will get back to all of you, but I also have my day-to-day real job to do that has a lot of tasks that I have to attend to. So there's no such thing as a dumb question. Just please reach out to us. We'll get all your questions answered. If it's not a fit with Clario, we have no problem sending you to our competition. We want this program to be for the service members, not for the company. So we're sharing all of our best practices. Everything we learn, we're sharing with our competitors as well in this space.
Frank, you bring up such a great point that you don't live on LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, Frank doesn't really do LinkedIn at all. Okay, let's be honest. And I will say that I know people often don't like, you have to go apply here, because I think people feel like then they've lost that personal connection. Let me be super transparent. If you send Frank a private message on LinkedIn, he may or may not even ever see it. This is just the reality, right? And while you may think that you're building a personal relationship with the person in charge of hiring, you might be. But here's what's going to happen. In like a week, Frank's going to call Kristen. He's going to be like, what are all the candidates that we have for the Philadelphia market? Send them to me based on what's in your system. If you have not applied through our intake, we have no knowledge. So please do not mess around and wait on a private message reply from Frank or anybody else at Clario.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time availability.
Yes, it's just so this, like, listen, ATSs are not a big scary black hole that we sometimes hear about. It's actually a way for us to track all the applicants and make sure that we are communicating with all the applicants. So I hope that is helpful. I will drop the URL here again where you can go apply directly. Sorry, I'm on so many soapboxes today.
I hope to see lots of familiar names applying to the programs that work best for them.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you. Happy holidays. And we look forward to seeing those applications coming in for the Clario program.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks, Candy. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
All right. You guys, the replay will be up for this. I'll try to have it up on the website by tomorrow with that same link. Thanks, everybody.